As we turn our attention to creating a vision for the rhythms of your sex life, which will have to do with, are you enjoying each stage of sex for what it is? Are you able to move seamlessly from one stage to the next? Are you able to do that over and over again with confidence in a way that you both enjoy? What you're probably going to discover is this. There are some areas of your sex life right now where you're really enjoying it. You have a high degree of confidence that you can do that over and over again. There are other areas of your sex life which may not be as good as that, but they're also not a problem, and you've got a great vision, you've got some great ideas of things you would like to try, so there's hope there. But you also may discover that there are places in that cycle where you hit a snag or a roadblock. And because this is sex we're talking about, that snag can be very jarring and very painful. So as we create a vision for the rhythms of your sex life, we're going to practice one new skill set, which is critical to add to your vision, because if you don't do this, then your vision, as good as it is, can actually be a source of frustration, discouragement, and heartache. Hi everybody, I'm Greg from Heart Tools, where we make it simple to build great relationships. And just as your wall is different from every other couple's wall, and your garden is different from every other couple's garden, so your rhythm, the rhythm of your sex life, is going to be different from every other couple's rhythm. So how often you make love, how long you engage in foreplay, do you orgasm before, during, or after intercourse, just about everything about your rhythm is going to be unique to you as a couple. And the only thing that really matters is, are you both satisfied with the rhythm that you're creating? And so what you're going to do now is to work together as a couple to create a vision of what your rhythm in your sex life is going to look like. And because it's very common for us to have certain places where we consistently hit snags that can disrupt that rhythm and cause a lot of pain, we're going to add another piece as we create the vision. What we're going to do is we're going to have the vision, we're going to create the vision that we want. But also for each section, we're going to talk about what is our realistic expectation for what's going to happen. And that's absolutely critical, because our vision is grounded in the future, but a realistic expectation is grounded in the present. The vision is where we want to get to, but the realistic expectation lets us know where we're at right now and kind of how far the journey is to where we want to get to. And what you're going to do when you set a realistic expectation is you're actually going to put a number to it on a scale of 1 to 10. 10 being this goes very well, 1 being this is a problem for me consistently. And that's going to be helpful in several ways. Let's say, for example, you struggle with having intrusive thoughts during sex, and that's been true for a long time, right? And you just really have a hard time staying sensuously present and focusing on what's going on right here now. There's a part of you that just wants to run and disappear somewhere else. So maybe you score that as a 2 because you know every time you get to that stage, that's going to be a struggle for you. Well, here is how having a 2 there can be helpful to you. If your vision for that part of your sex is a 10, and by the way, your vision ought to be a 10 because that's the nature of it being a vision, right? Your vision's a 10, and let's say the last time you had sex, when it came to being sensuously present, you were at a 3, right? Well, if you're comparing that 3 to a 10, it always feels like failure. But if you expected a 2 and got a 3, that feels like success. That feels like growth. That feels like I'm getting one step closer. And let's say you expect a 2 and every once in a while you get a 1, right? Well, that's not the end of the world. There's something to learn there. If you compare that 1 to a 10, again, it can be very discouraging. So if you set a realistic expectation, then it allows you to grow incrementally and enjoy the small successes that you make as you're working towards your vision. Now, the other thing we're going to do with this number, let's say it's a 2 again, what we're going to ask ourselves is if a realistic expectation is a 2, what does a 3 look like? What would be different if I got a 3 or a 4? What would that look like? What specifically would happen differently? And how could I get there? And so that question is going to help you create a roadmap of what are the specific steps that I or we need to take so that that 2 becomes a 3, that 3 becomes a 5, that 5 becomes a 6, and pretty soon this area that was a consistent snag and kind of difficult, interrupts our rhythm, no longer interrupts the rhythm of your lovemaking. As you create the vision for the rhythms of your sex life, and as you identify what's your realistic expectation and what are 1 or 2 things that you could specifically practice to improve in those areas and to build more trust in that area, I would suggest that moving forward, you continue practice being sensuously present and growing your garden and experimenting with all the different things you brainstormed on how to bring sensual delight to one another, and continue to learn how your bodies work until you feel pretty confident and pretty certain that you know what brings both of you to arousal, that you know what prepares each one of you for intercourse. Continue to practice that separately without the pressure of having to get to intercourse. Now, there's going to come a point where you're pretty confident. You know how your bodies work. You have several different ways of you've learned a lot, right? And you can just fold that into sex and that'll just become a part of foreplay. And there still may be a lot of things from your brainstorming that you want to experiment with and practice. And so at some point you'll just fold that in. But for now, continue to practice that. And then there's a separate journaling tool that you can use with this section specifically on how's the rhythm going in your sex life. And I wouldn't use that every time you have sex, but maybe once every month or 2, you pull out one of those journaling sheets and just say, how are we learning? How have these numbers changed, right? Has anything gone from a 2 to a 4 or from a 4 to a 6? What are the next steps we need to get better at this? Are there any surprises? Anything really that we learned that just is amazing that we want to capture? And use that tool to keep you moving closer and closer towards the rhythm that you would love to have in your sex life. So 3 simple steps with this video, and you can use the Sex in Paradise workbook to complete these steps. First, create the vision for the rhythm of your sex life. Second, give a current reality score to each step of that rhythm. And then third, those scores that tend to be snags, ask yourself, what is it going to look like to move up 1 step or 2 steps and create a roadmap that will take you closer and closer to the vision that you have. Simple steps to create a rhythm that you both find satisfying. Simple steps to build a wall where you both feel safe enough to play. And simple steps to grow a garden rich in delight and pleasure so that you both can enjoy sex in paradise together. Simple steps. Practice, practice, practice. That's what Heart Tools is all about.